You're ready to boost your career and pass the CQA exam, but you're not sure where to start? I'll show everything you need to pass the CQA exam in your first attempt. So let's get started. Hey, quality auditors. My name is CB Russell, and I'm a quality auditor for over 13 years with experience in first party, second party, and also third party audit. I'm going to be covering an overview of the CQA exam, the questions that are included in CQA exam, and also a few tips and tricks for you to get prepared efficiently and pass the CQA exam in your first attempt as well. CQA exam is offered by the American Society for Quality, ASQ, and people who pass this exam becomes a certified quality auditor. This exam is recognized internationally and is very important for quality auditors because, as you may know, there is no specific certification or graduation or degree to become a quality auditor. So, this certification really proves that you have the knowledge to become a certified quality auditor. This exam is not specifically for any standard, ISO 9001, or any other standard that you can imagine. This exam is specifically about the skills to become a quality auditor. So it's focused on auditing and no standards specifically. Because the exam is provided by a well recognized organization, the ASQ, and is also recognized worldwide, is definitely worth the investment. And becoming a CQA, you're going to certainly boost your career. You can get pay raise, you can look for a better job if the company you work for doesn't recognize the certification. So it certainly helps you to also be recognized among colleagues and build your confidence. For example, for me, as auditing for more than 13 years, when I was preparing for the exam, it certainly helped me to learn new things that I perhaps never came across, and also helped me to become a more confident auditor because I knew what I was doing, the skills that sometimes is not specifically about the standards, but just the skills about auditing, and also helped me to handle conflict during your audit and so much more. So it's certainly worth the investment of the money to do the exam and also investment of the time to study and pass the exam. You need to have 80 years of experience as a quality auditor. Those years of experience can be much less depending of your education and degree. For example, the highest as a master's degree, you can have only 3 years of experience as a quality auditor. So it 8 is, let's say, the maximum, but it can be as little as 3 years, depending on your degree. Another part of the requirement to do the CQ exam is have 3 years of experience on decision making. So if you're auditing, that is definitely a decision making position where you're auditing and make a decision about a non-conformance, for example, or perhaps you can be a quality supervisor, a quality manager, or many other skills related to the book of knowledge. Regards to the exam format, ASQ provide the exams as a remote exam where you can do on your laptop at home, or you can also go to an exam location where you do exam in a paper format. So it's totally up to you. Exam cost 533 US dollars is the same if you're doing in person, paper base, or if you're doing remotely. And if you need to do the exam one more time because you fail your first attempt, then the retake of the exam costs $333. Another important thing to keep in mind is that the exam is not provided anytime you want because it's a remote exam. There is testing windows, and CQA it is provided on even months. So let's say February, April, and so forth. And there's also a deadline for you to register for the exam that is about 15 days before the first day of the following month. So let's say if you want to do the exam in February, the application deadline is 12th of January. Keep your eyes on the ASQ website to register in time to do the exam. And if you decide to do the remote exam, after you pay for the exam, you go online and you choose the date you want. There's many options, and the exam is also converted to your time zone. For example, I am located in Australia, and before I pay for the exam, I was thinking that I was going to do in America time, so I would have to wake up in the middle of the night for the exam. But actually, that's not the case, which is really helpful if you live in any other country. When you register for the exam, there is time available for your local time zone. So for me, for example, I started the exam at 10 a.m. at my local time. If you live in another country, don't worry about time zone and you can do during the day. In regards to the questions, the exam provides 150 questions that are marked and plus 15 questions that unscored. Those 15 questions are new questions that the ASQ put into the exam to see how many people is going to get right or wrong and basically test if that question is a good fit to the exam. However, when you're doing the exam, you don't know which questions are the test questions. So you don't have the option to pick which questions you're going to answer and let's say think that you can leave 15 questions without an answer. No, that's not the case. You do need to answer all 165 questions. And you have basically 5 hours, almost 5 hours and 30 minutes to answer all the questions. And they are scenario based. So they give an example of a reorganization and they use even some study cases where you do need to read a little essay to answer some questions. Speed reading is very important because if you think about it, you don't have too much time. The book of knowledge is basically a document provided by ESQ that shows each topic that's covered in the exam. It's extremely important if you're not going to buy the CQA handbook, but I highly recommend you to get the CQA handbook. But if you don't, the book of knowledge is basically the chapters of the questions that's going to be included in the exam. It's important for you to understand each one of them and really understand and feel prepared for the exam. Part 1 is auditing fundamentals. Part 2 is audit process. Part 3 is auditor competencies. Part 4, audit program management and business applications. And lastly, part 5, quality tools and techniques. The key challenges for the CQA exam is firstly time management because we don't have time to sit down and really dive into each questions and really think of which answer we think is the right one. So time management is extremely important. Some questions might be very complex, especially for those that doesn't have English as their mother language, like myself. So sometimes you do need to pay more attention to the questions, to the words, to really understand the meaning of the question. And I think the other key point is the lack of preparation because the exam requires so many years of experience. Many people think that they are prepared for the exam, they have all the experience and knowledge about quality auditing, so they don't need to study for the exam. But that's not true. I highly recommend anybody taking the exam to not waste their money and prepare for the exam. And here's the key point to study for the CQA exam. And I highly recommend it to anyone getting ready for the CQA exam. My key tip is practicing questions. This is the most effective way to study for the exam, not only CQA exam, but any exam. So if you never learned about it, actually, I just learned as I was preparing myself for the CQA exam. And I realized that I was studying wrong my whole life. But it's better late than never, right? So practice questions is extremely important. So you can prepare questions based on what you're studying and then later on or the following day, ask yourself those questions to make sure that you really understood what you studied the day before and feel prepared and not forget those key things for the exam. One important thing is that the exam is an open book, which means you can take the CQA exam for you. That's why I have these little marks here, which I'm going to explain in another video what is this for. But you can have the exam and have the book and open all the pages and look for answers for the questions. However, you don't have much time for that. So even if you have the best resource on your hands, you're not going to have time to look for answers for every question. So understanding the questions, knowing I would say at least 50% of the questions is very important. And if you're interested, write in the comments below handbook, and I'm going to explain to you how to use the handbook efficiently during the exam day so you don't waste so much time and you can answer all the questions quickly. For example, during my exam day, I had almost 30 minutes spare at the end of the exam. I had time to go back to the handbook and carefully choose the best answer for those questions that I wasn't sure. And that is because I practice time management, I practice questions during my exam using flashcards and the question bank provided by ESQ, and those two resources are extremely helpful. And lastly, but not least, jump to my website, thequalityauditor.com, and there you're going to find a free CQA questions for you to practice and have a good understanding and feeling what the questions looks like for the exam. So go to the website, thequalityauditor.com, and you're going to find the free CQA question where you can download a PDF provided by ASQ for you to practice and get prepared for your exam day. If you want to learn more about the CQA exam, subscribe to the channel and watch this next video here or here about how to get prepared efficiently for the CQA exam. See you there!